screen if you want, so put it on the TV. We're on Channel 7. We're watching the game Richmond Collingwood. I'm joined on the couch, as I always am, by the great man Lucas.
Mate, unbelievable. Mate, what got here? Mate, it's like an SEN reunion, mate. SEN speaking extra new start. Mate, Rene Kink, how you going, mate?
Good, thanks, Guido. Fantastic. I know you love your magpies. I know that.
Fantastic, mate. You're a hairdresser. Whoever sold you that suit gave you a haircut. Mate, Kevin Bartlett, you're just here to get the chicks in, mate. Fantastic. You hungry?
I thought it was Ozzy Osbourne for a minute.
Oh, no, mate. The Guido Hatzes. You've got to get it right. I can't believe it. We got Troy Zantuck as well. This is unbelievable. Mate, I'll give you a football statistic, mate. You want to know what it is?
What's that, Guido?
100% of the time you're a skippy dickhead. There you go. You can take that. Take that to the bank, mate. All right, that's it. I'm out of here. You guys have a good night tonight. And remember, ancient Greeks invented football.
KB and Rene, you played your first game against Richmond, Rene.
The controversy about it was that for Rene to come in and play at 16 years of age, they had to drop the great Peter McKenna, which has caused a little bit of heartburn over the years. But I think you kicked 3 goals for, was it, Rene?
3 goals for I kicked on the famous Dick Clay, and yeah, you know, it was start of my career, and 7 losing grand finals later, nothing changed.
If you had Peter McKenna dropped and you had Royce Hart on the bench.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Royce Hart had to be on the bench because Royce had a crook knee and probably wasn't even expected to actually play in the game. But rather than going to the game without him, being a preliminary final, they thought they'd take the risk and put him on the bench if he was needed. And, of course, we were 7 goals down at half-time, and Royce came on and kicked an early goal in the third quarter, which triggered a great Richmond comeback. And finally, we got Collingwood late in the game, and we finished up winning by 9 points.
Interesting stat about Rene. He started his career against the Lions in round 1973, and he finished his career round 1986 against Fitzroy.
Year at St Kilda, you only played in one winning team. You remember who it was against?
No, I don't. I don't really remember it.
No, we're from Tigerland.
Again.
Did you get paid a fortune for the movie The Club?
Funny enough, there's only Tommy Hayfield and myself on actors' equity contracts, and I got royalties for a few years.
Really?
Look, it was about $2,500 for the movie that I got. Extras were, I think, on about a couple $100, when they came in to do their little bit, and then I got royalties for a few years. It wasn't much, but I remember the last check that I got was $37.
Footy's back.
Bouncing the ball.
Yeah, footy's back. There's a good start with Dustin Martin getting the first kick. He kicked it 15 metres straight to Cochin. Can you believe that? What's wrong with football these days, Rene?
I think 18 months ago.
Well,
they never kick it. How about DeGoey? I think 18 months ago he didn't have one tattoo. He's nearly as many as Dusty.
Shocking memories of Mason Cox in that preliminary final a couple of years ago in 2018 when he kicked those 4 goals and dominated the game. So it's just interesting they've left him out. I see he was an emergency tonight, and young Cameron comes in. So they must have high expectations of Cameron.
I've always said with Cox, whatever you get out of him is a bonus because he doesn't have a clue about the game. He's had that one great game, which he did fire up.
Clue. He kicked 4 goals against the Tigers in a preliminary final.
Oh, yes, honest, Kevin. He hasn't got a clue, but whatever you get out of him.
Honestly, Rene, he's a pretty good player, but he just doesn't cover the ground well enough. He doesn't get to enough contests.
Trev, didn't North Melbourne many years ago, didn't they have a basketballer, an American basketballer they had playing for him in the reserves, hoping that he'd come through and play as a senior?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his name was Eric Wallace, some huge fella, came from college basketball or something like that. Yeah.
Not on Lucas.
Not on Lucas.
Another project player who was on the list for 3 years and never struck a blow. As Brad used to say, you spend all your time on these project players and you don't spend any time with the guys who are actually playing.
Magson, isn't it? 44? Is that Magson?
44. Yeah, he's not a bad player actually.
Yeah, I think John Lennon wrote a song about him.
Jack Higgins, I mean, they picked him. That's the thing. I mean, he's had no footy, obviously, but they go, no, he's right, we put him in, and whatever he does, we'll lift the side.
I've got all my grandkids here watching the game. They go to Caulfield Grammar, and of course Jack Higgins was a Caulfield Grammar boy, so they've got their fingers crossed that he can do okay tonight.
They haven't got their system going yet.
Not yet. No, Collingwood's been very good. I mean, there's a few scrappy kicks. I mean, Rene's right. I mean, football has become a game of keepings off, and you get the ball and little short handballs, little short kicks. There's been a few scrubby and scrappy old kicks so far.
The Pies, they absolutely dismantled the Bulldogs in that first round. I know it was only obviously the first game, but gee, they looked impressive.
No, they were terrific against the Bulldogs. I mean, they only kicked 5 goals, the Bulldogs. And they've been confident, haven't they, in the lead up to the game? They've talked themselves up a little bit, the Pies. Marliam Pickett, in his first game, he played in front of about 100,000 in the grand final. And in his second game, Troy played in front of no one.
Yeah, it's a big come down.
It'd be just about the biggest differential in history, wouldn't it, from your first game to your second game?
Kevin, did you know at the current rate of how many games he's played per days of the year, he'll play his 100th game when he's 94 years old. They remembered you as a superstar junior footballer who kicked 126 goals in 11 games.
No, I came down from Ararat. I kicked 143 in 14 games. I kicked 22-15 one game. And I got beaten in the best and fairest by 1 vote.
You know what, Rene? That reminds me of a great story where you get beaten the best and fairest. I can remember speaking to the great Bob Pratt, and in 1933, I think it was, Bob Pratt kicked 150 goals, and along with Peter Hudson, of course, who equalled it, but the only two to kick 150 goals. And that year, he never won their best and fairest. So I said to Bob Pratt, how come you kicked 150 games in an 150 goals in an 18-game season and a couple of finals, and you couldn't win your club's best and fairest? He said, it upset me. He said, I went to the committee and I said to him, how come I never won the best and fairest? And they told me I wasn't consistent enough. When you think about it, people talk about Collingwood and Essendon on Anzac Day, drawing a big crowd there. In 1977, Richmond played Collingwood and drew 94,000.
It must have been a wonderful atmosphere for you, KB and Rene, to run out onto the ground with 92,000 people there, like a grand final.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're just little things that you sort of forget how great it was to be a young person, young footballer to do that.
Well, Kev, you play an Anzac game against Fitzroy in front of the Queen?
Yes.
She's a Fitzroy supporter, the Queen.
Yeah, she shook me by the hand and she said, KB, I'm a big fan.
You didn't have too much resin on your hand, take her glove with it.
The Bombers are the natural enemy of North Melbourne. Have you always thought that?
Not particularly. I've never minded Essendon. In fact, always loved Kevin Sheedy and always loved what he did to promote the game. Actually, one thing that's gone out of the broadcast these days is that they never tell you which way the wind's blowing. And they go at half the quarter time, they go, they're 4 goals in front. Then at half time, they caught up. And then in the third quarter, the game swung around again. You go, it's a 5-goal breeze out there.
We just had a very quiet AFL Hall of Fame night, and I cannot tell you how pleased I was that Lenny Hayes was recognised. I mean, he's an unassuming bloke, Lenny, and he quickly went to GWS after he finished. He's not in the headlines. He was the most physically, he was a ferocious player, Lenny. He ended a couple of careers. He's a great bloke, Lenny. He's a lovely boy. Him and George Young.
Has someone got a take on this Jack Stephen stabbing thing? Does anyone know anything about it?
I think we know what happened, but no one actually knows anything.
We isolated pretty well. Very fortunate that, the family would do the shopping and bring across food and bake some food for us and all that sort of stuff and bring it across. My kids were really, really good. So Denise was very, very conscious of, having hand wash and all that sort of stuff. It was a bit tough because my youngest daughter just had her first baby and, we couldn't see the baby for, about 8 or 9 weeks there at one stage, which was a a little bit tough.
I mean, Kevin's still fitter than most 40.
Well, he's lived a great lifestyle.
I'm 93.
It's a shit lifestyle, but anyhow.
Turns out you're at 50% less risk of COVID if you smoke. So turns out I've been on a health kick for 40 years.
Got my fingers crossed that the Tigers might be able to kick a goal this quarter, surely.
That's certainly right, Finey. How West Coast going to go if the crowd can't umpire it? They got a massive disadvantage.
Precinct McHugh worked that out with Kerry Packer. He
had to retire. He nearly had a heart attack after Kerry wanted to bet him to win 10 mil.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying, well, he did the right thing. He did retire. And Kerry went over there in front of him and said, how dare you? I still want to bet with you. And he goes, there's no use, Kerry. In the end, you're just going to keep betting more and more until you win. I can't win against you. I'm ahead now. And if I don't stop now, you will eventually get me because you've got limitless funds.
Well, Bruce was also like about 82 at the time, and his heart couldn't stand the pressure.
Well, Packer accepted it. Packer said, no, fair enough.
What I remember of running it in front of 90,000, it was something really, really special, and not many people get that opportunity.
No. I mean, you didn't have a 16-year-old's body, though. I mean,
No, that's right.
You were well prepared.
Were you saying, Finey, he was a man in a boy's body?
He was Anthony Bannock plus some, I'll tell you. And let me tell you, Anthony Bannock unfortunately never hit the heights, but Rene could play the football to match the physique. He was a really exciting young footballer. In fact, no more exciting player in the league there during his teen years. It was thrilling to watch him play. That goal at Waverley.
Yeah.
And then the following year, we turned it around because Tommy came in, and we all became men overnight. You know why, Kevin? You've played under him, and you've coached yourself. So, and we're very close friends with Tommy. And just everything changed, and everyone's career absolutely blossomed because we became one. We became a unit. We became a very special side, and once again, we were unlucky not to win some premierships. Carmen's the best player I've ever seen in my life. I love Darryl Baldock. He was a bit before my time. I love Ian Stewart.
The story goes that Teddy Whitten and Murray Plant presented Phil Carmen with the boots, and I think Phil said, mate, you're kidding me. I can't wear these. So I thought there might have been a financial inducement there for Fabulous, and suddenly he popped up in the white boots.
And where did he pop up?
First game in the white boots, I believe, was against the Bombers, and the following week was that famous game where he kicked 11 against the Saints at Moorabbin.
What a game. George Young kicked 9. It was hammer and tongs all day.
Wow.
Oh, that was a heck of a game. You got to create your own energy here now, don't you, Richmond? Normally the crowd would be on their feet and razzing them up just before half time. So it's up to the players really to create that energy going into half time, isn't it, Kev? And Rene and Trevor and Lucas.
Yeah, but is that even a thing? I mean, when you're playing junior footy, you run out there, you play the game. It doesn't matter if there's a crowd there or not.
Well, I think at halftime what we can say is that, Collingwood have been on top in the first half, but, to only lead by 14 points at halftime, I think the Tigers will go in there quite happy with that because, Collingwood's been really dominating. The Tigers really struggled, didn't even score, a point in the first. They scored 1 point in the first quarter. And at some stage, you're going to get your window of opportunity. And I don't think that window of opportunity yet has come from the Tigers. That 10 or 15 minutes in a game when you actually dominate the game.
Fellas, what really shits me are these short quarters. Honestly, there's no rationale behind it anymore. They're not playing more than one game a week. Football is not played over 16 minutes and time on. It's like twisties. Every year there's less twisties in the packet.
There was another guy who was pretty handy too, Peter Chisholm.
Oh, yeah. He was as tough as nails, Rene. Chisholm.
He was very good, and he talked it up too. And, he wasn't afraid to let the opposition know, but also, more importantly, he let his own teammates know that this is war. Let's go.
Well, wouldn't have been easy against Carlton, the flying doormat.
Yeah, I
David
didn't play against. I mainly played on Clompy, and he played me very, very close most times. Peter McConville a little bit. Once again, both Peter's far more skilled player, but they're both very hard to play on because they never gave you an inch. They're always shoulder to shoulder, and if you ran, they ran with you, and they made sure they did, inside you or outside you, whatever they had to be. So, and of course, you're aware of the way Tommy had trained us leading into the grand final, like he did with every other grand final.
But Tommy would say that he trained Collingwood players no differently than he trained the Richmond players, and he won 4 premierships.
Well, that's nice for him to say that.
What I do remember a bit about the 1980 grand final was that you played quite well early, Collingwood, but you missed some goals early. It was a bit windy, a bit blustery early. I reckon Ray Shaw might have hit the post 2 or 3 times himself, and I think Craig Davis hit the post. There was a couple of players hit the post, which sort of didn't give you enough momentum, as the game went on.
Yeah, that's right. We did miss some early goals, but we didn't have the momentum as the game went on because it was a hot day, if you remember, and you turned it on, and I think Stan Magro and Kevin Morris are still looking for you. I think they're having a cocktail in the Hilton Hotel as you turned and burnt them off and left them for dead. But that's football, and you were magnificent. Richmond were magnificent, and once again, we did a great job to get there from 5th. There's only 5 in the comp that year, remember? Kevin and I didn't get on at all, so.
What was that, Rene? Because obviously he would have gone out of his way to recruit you for a specific reason.
Oh, look, Kev, it's one of those things I really don't want to talk about because I don't need to be detrimental to anything or anyone, and it's something that I don't really want to talk about. I just put it down that
personality clash.
Well, yeah, call it personality or call it of lack of communication or something. I don't know, but I walked out the gates of St Kilda when I was 29. I said, never again. I've had enough. I'm mentally and physically burnt out. They've got to pay that. They've got to pay that, don't they?
You know what's been incredible tonight, fellas? Kevin Bartlett's bladder. I've seen him have a can of Coke, a can of Solo, 2 cups of tea, and he hasn't left these.
He's had 4 Hershey bars as well, too.
He has not left that seat.
Who's kicked the most goals for the Tigers against the Pies over the journey?
I'm going for Kevin Bartlett.
I got no idea.
Oh, no. Jack Titus?
I think Jack played in 6. I played in 6 plus the night one against North Melbourne at Waverley.
You don't count night grand finals, do you?
Well, there was 80-odd thousand there, and I was in the car park I had a flat tyre. I was changing the tyre. Someone yelled out and said, "You got to come back on the field again." That's how long it took siren to go off. Unbelievable. I was at a function once with Gary Buckenara was speaking, and he actually brought up the fact that Waverley had the worst siren system he's ever seen or heard in his career.
I remember 1972, I was a kid at school, and traditionally, if your team won, then you wore your jumper to school on the Monday. And I waited till round, whatever it was, 17, 19, before we finally won a game, our first game and only game for the whole year. And I proudly put on my school jumper and walked to school. And I turned up, and there was nobody else wearing footy jumpers. And they looked at me and went, "Oi, the school photos today. You're supposed to be wearing your uniform, you suck."
They've got to do something here, Richmond. They've still only got the one bloke kick a goal.
I mean, they say that size doesn't matter, but you never see a 2-inch vibrator.
All right, I'm using that one.
I mean, Collingwood's 34 and the Tigers are 26, so they've kicked 4 goals. I think Collingwood's kicked 5. These are the 2 best, arguably the 2 best sides in the competition. Should we be getting a better spectacle in terms of scoring?
Yes, I agree, KB. I miss those heavy scores of days gone by. The co-record holder of that, the most goals in a game for the Tigers against Collingwood, was a guy that you coached, Jeff Hogg.
Yes, he kicked 10 goals against Collingwood. I think it was 1991. after Collingwood won the premiership in 1990 at the MCG when they were knocking down the Great Southern Stand.
Yeah.
And we beat Collingwood that day. And Jeffrey was magnificent. He was a tremendous player, Jeff Hogg, for me as coach, because 99% of the time he played full forward. But on the odd occasion when we were really, really struggling down back and, we needed to sort of shore up our defence, put him down back a couple of times. And he played one magnificent game at fullback against Jason Dunstall out at Waverley.
Yeah.
They had always been beating us by, 10 and 12 goals. Hawthorn, they were the powerhouse side of the competition. We were pretty low. But we led just about all day. In the last quarter, we were leading till about the last couple of minutes. We nearly got beaten on the last kick of the day. But Jeff Hogg that day, I think, held Dunstall to 3 goals. And I think he kicked a late goal. The game of keepings off and the players around the ball and the little handballs, the little short kicks going backwards and forwards and playing keepings off. I mean, do you think that, the game is as good a spectacle? I was watching during the coronavirus. They had on that St Kilda Geelong game out at Waverley. The final, I think it was 1991, it might have been.
Yes,
Lockett at one end. Lockett kicked about 9. And I think at the other end of the ground, Billy Brownless might have kicked 8 or something like that. But it was a magnificent game of football to watch.
Yeah, it was. Did you see Gary Ablett that day? He's a brutal. He got Nathan Burke wore a helmet thereafter, and he got David as well. As good as he was dangerous, Gary Ablett, I'll tell you. So this was my criticism of Nathan Buckley. He's such a perfectionist that he wanted to rip passes onto people's chest. Where to me, the perfect kick in the forward line is the one that gives the forward the 75-25 advantage. Float it out.
That's the ball in front of you, Mark, or out the front of you where you run onto it and you use your pace, you use your skill, you use your hands to take it out in the front of your chest and knock it down. You don't take it, at least you've got the ability to turn this way, turn that way and go on with it. But when you've got players, unfortunately, that I had kicked the ball down to my forward line, it was just, a raffle every time.
I'm tipping it to draw.
Put on your mic, will you?
Troy, how many draws between Richmond and Collingwood?
I haven't got that handy, KB. Did you play in any draws over your?
Yes. In fact, the very first final played out at Waverley was in 1972, and that was between Richmond and Carlton, and it ended in a draw. And then we had to play Carlton again at the MCG, and we defeated Carlton. But then Carlton came back, of course, famously, won a preliminary final, and then, of course, beat us in the grand final when we kicked 50 goals. Troy, you'd know this. What's before the start of the season? I know they may have taken a pay cut, but what was the salary cap for an AFL club for the players? 14 million.
I believe so, KB. It was
and how much for the football department? 10 million.
10 million for the footy department. Yeah.
So that's $24 million. That's $24 million for players and coaches. So we double that for two sides. That's $48 million on display, and we kick 5 goals each.
Yeah, you're asking where the money's going.
Are we getting our money's worth? That's what I want to know.
I'll get Josh Frydenberg on the phone for you, Kate.
Hey, Kevin, when the crowd walked out of the ground at the 1927 grand final.
Yes.
That Richmond, I think they defeated Collingwood 213 to 1-7.
Yes.
You know what they were saying?
Yes.
£23 they're getting paid between these two teams, and they've only kicked.
I'm suggesting in 1927 in that grand final, Richmond didn't win in 27. 27, 28, 29, Collingwood won. So Collingwood won the grand final.
So was it 213 to 1-7?
Something like that.
Could be back here next week.
We could be, Jeff. Yeah. Same crowd.
Honestly, there's no scoring. You know what we've got to do?
Tackle.
I'll tell you what you've got to do. You've got to take the goalpost and you've got to put the goalpost on the wing. That's what we've got to do.
Oh, come on, Lambert, get through. Yes, I don't like Collingwood as much as the next person.
I'll tell you what, if this is what we're going to see, if this is how we're going to play football, when they open the gates, no one will go.
They definitely drew in 1917.
Okay.
Well, that was the first season, wasn't it, Kevin?
No, Richmond came in 1908.
No, you personally debuted.
No, I played the year before. I sat on the bench for the last game of the season.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. Oh,
Brown is too small.
oh, that's 80,000 disappointed fans.
Look at this expression on KB.
Says it all. He's disgusting.
Honestly, I'm telling you, football's in trouble. That was going to be a blockbuster coming back from the coronavirus, and that crap that we've seen tonight between the two best sides is a disgrace to the game of Australian rules football, and no one cares.
They've tried.
I've told them a million times. Fatigue's got to be the factor of the game in Australian rules football, and once you take fatigue out of the game, which you do through interchange, you have this problem. Doesn't matter what they've tried, they keep trying to fix, and I call it the ingrown toenail with all these little changes instead of attacking the heart valve, which is interchange. And sooner or later, surely someone at the AFL has got to look at this and say, this is crap. What was that game? Was it a good game or crap game? Crap. Everyone's crap. And I've got Collingwood and Richmond supporters here.
That's the Bartlett household.
I'll tell you what, though, Kev, if Richmond had kicked one more point, would have been a good game.
No, it wouldn't have been. You see, that's the problem. Well, no. People say, they try and compare players, they try and compare teams and things of that nature. In the last, say, 15 years, you cannot compare anything that's happened in the last 12 to 15 years with any other era in the history of the game.
Everyone wants football back, Kev, so crowds are going to eventually come back in a big way.
Well, you know why? Because that's because we've got a captive audience, and we know you can't kill off Australian rules football. You can't kill it off. It's like the clivia in the garden. You can't kill it. But I tell you what, it's only a few things that keep it alive, and at the moment it's nearly on its deathbed.